Imagine coming home to a quiet house that once echoed with laughter and bustling family activities, only to realize how easily solitude creeps into your life as time goes on. Perhaps you've spent decades caring for others, children, spouses, friends, and suddenly you find yourself facing the evenings alone. This isn't just about aging, it's about discovering how to truly live when life's pace slows and familiar faces become distant. In this video, we'll explore ways to turn solitude into a path of renewal, hope, and personal growth, drawing on real-life stories that prove it's never too late to redefine the future you deserve. If you relate to these experiences, we'd love to hear your own story in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting content. Before we delve into our first chapter, let's see how one unexpected conversation changed everything. 1. The unexpected loneliness. Michael Sullivan always envisioned retirement as a peaceful reward after decades of hard work. Sunny mornings spent reading the paper, afternoon strolls in the neighborhood, and weekends filled with laughter when his grandchildren visited. Yet life had other plans. 2 years before he retired, his wife Sharon passed away unexpectedly, leaving their cozy suburban home strangely still. In the beginning, he was busy with practical matters, funeral arrangements, paperwork, and condolences from friends. But once that initial wave of activity subsided, he woke each morning to a quiet that filled every corner. He discovered that loneliness often whispers rather than shouts. It showed up when he reached into the fridge and realized he was the only one who cared if there was milk left. His daughter and son checked in by phone, but their quick chats never truly bridged the distance. Kind neighbors waved from their cars or invited him to short conversations about the weather, yet Michael felt it awkward to discuss the heartache weighing him down. He worried he might become a burden to his kids, both juggling jobs and families of their own. The house itself reminded him of Sharon's absence. Her favorite chair by the window felt like a monument to happier times. At first, he told himself to adjust, that many people lose spouses and continue on. But day by day, the emptiness became a constant presence. TV shows no longer held his attention, and microwaved meals replaced the simple dinners he once enjoyed cooking. Beneath his calm exterior, Michael longed for someone to share little moments with, a funny dream, a petty argument with the cable company, or even just the sight of new shrubs planted on the street. Reluctantly, he confided in a longtime friend over coffee. Simply voicing how lonely he felt lifted a weight he couldn't share with his children. His friend's genuine empathy made him realize that acknowledging loneliness might be the first step to overcoming it. Aging alone was tough, yet maybe there were still avenues for hope. Still, loneliness wasn't his only concern. Before long, Michael began to wonder how he'd handle life's inevitable financial challenges, medical bills, home repairs, day-to-day expenses, without relying too heavily on his family. That worry soon became the next piece of the puzzle he needed to face, preparing himself financially for the road ahead. Admitting you feel lonely is often the first and hardest step. Opening up, even slightly, can help break the silence and point you toward real solutions. 2. Financial preparedness as a lifeline. In the months following Sharon's passing, Michael found himself overwhelmed not only by loneliness, but also by the realization that money had quietly taken on a new significance in his life. While working, he had assumed his regular paycheck, combined with a modest pension, would be enough to cover most needs. Yet retirement had a way of highlighting future uncertainties: medical bills, home repairs, even small surprises like prescription costs or a broken water heater could suddenly loom large. One particularly sleepless night, he decided to take a closer look at his finances. Sorting through stacks of paperwork, he noticed old bills and outdated insurance policies. He realized that, for years, Sharon had been the more organized one, keeping tabs on which insurance plans made sense, when to switch providers, and how much to set aside each month. Now, Michael had to shoulder those decisions alone. He experienced a pang of regret for not being more involved sooner, but regrets wouldn't solve anything. He needed to take action. The next day, he contacted a financial counselor recommended by a friend. At first, he felt vulnerable discussing personal details with a stranger. However, the counselor's calm approach and straightforward explanations gave him the clarity he desperately needed. They discussed everything: monthly budgets, expected retirement income, possible rainy day funds. The counselor emphasized that long-term financial stability wasn't about being wealthy. It was about understanding exactly where your money was going and ensuring there was enough of a buffer for the unexpected. Over the following weeks, Michael made small but meaningful adjustments. He refashioned his monthly budget, cutting back on unused subscriptions and renegotiating a few utility plans. He also looked into Medicare supplement options, making sure he'd be covered adequately if health issues arose. Although he'd always been cautious with spending, these steps offered new peace of mind. The presence of a solid financial plan gave him a sense of control he hadn't felt since Sharon's death. Yet, as he reviewed the counselor's notes, one detail stood out. Financial independence could protect his dignity and reduce his reliance on family, but it wouldn't entirely erase his deeper loneliness. The counselor even mentioned that some older clients found comfort in community programs or senior centers, where they could share resources and information about affordable living. Michael realized that being ready for the future involved more than monthly spreadsheets or insurance policies. It called for emotional resilience and connection too. With his finances gradually in order, Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders. There was relief in knowing he could face medical scares or home repairs without instantly turning to his children for help. He also understood that no matter how carefully he budgeted, he needed to tend to his emotional well-being. A solid financial plan isn't about wealth. It's about gaining peace of mind and protecting your independence, so you can focus on the people and activities that truly matter. 3. Embracing independence and personal well-being. As the months wore on, Michael realized that addressing his finances had offered him a sliver of peace, but it hadn't filled the quiet void in his life. He found himself spending more evenings in front of the TV, half listening to shows he'd once enjoyed. Sometimes, he'd wake up in the early hours of the morning, wrestling with the same questions. Who's going to care for me if I fall ill? How do I keep my mind and body strong? The weight of these thoughts grew more pronounced each time his children were too busy to visit or a friend had plans of their own. On a whim, he decided to visit the local community center, where a handful of classes and gatherings catered to older adults. The first day, Michael felt out of place, unsure if anyone shared his interests or struggles. Yet, as he lingered near the bulletin board displaying a list of activities, a friendly volunteer struck up a conversation. She recommended a gentle yoga class designed for seniors and invited him to sit in on a craft workshop. Feeling a spark of curiosity, Michael enrolled in the yoga class. Though hesitant at first, he discovered that these simple sessions weren't just about physical exercise. Each stretch and breathing exercise helped ease tension he hadn't realized he was carrying. More importantly, being in a group setting allowed for casual chats before and after class, a chance to connect with people who understood the challenges of growing older. The instructor also spoke about stress management and mindful living, concepts that intrigued Michael. Over time, he came to see these small routines as cornerstones of his new life. Beyond yoga, he began taking morning walks at a nearby park, enjoying the crisp air and sounds of nature to start his day. Gradually, Michael noticed a change in how he perceived solitude. His days felt purposeful, bookended by a sense of anticipation for each class or social meetup. In the past, he'd avoided group settings for fear of feeling awkward, but now he realized many seniors there had similar anxieties. Sharing these worries with new acquaintances became surprisingly liberating. Whether it was commiserating about stubborn joint pains or laughing over childhood memories, he realized how much he had missed connection that went beyond small talk. On top of this, Michael started to refine his daily habits. Instead of relying on microwaved meals, he began cooking simpler, healthier dishes, recalling how Sharon once infused their kitchen with fresh ingredients. Even if he dined alone now, the act of preparing meals gave him a sense of continuity with the past and responsibility for his future well-being. He also reduced late-night TV marathons, choosing to read or journal, practices that helped him process lingering grief and set modest goals for each day. By embracing self-care and seeking community, Michael rediscovered a sense of control. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was shaping a life that honored both his emotional and physical needs. Yet he also wondered whether true independence would still feel incomplete without a deeper bond. That question set the stage for a new chapter in his journey, the possibility of rediscovering companionship. Independence is more than living alone. It's about proactively nurturing body and mind. Simple habits and supportive communities can turn isolation into purposeful living. 4. Rediscovering love and companionship. Even as Michael embraced his new routines, he couldn't ignore a lingering sense that something remained unfinished. Yes, he was growing more active and independent. Yes, he'd found places in his community where he could chat, learn new skills, and share a laugh. But every so often, especially on quiet Sundays or dark, rainy evenings, he felt a hollow ache that simple friendships didn't fill. It was during one of those community center workshops, a casual afternoon discussion on local history, that Michael first noticed Linda. She was flipping through an old newspaper clipping, occasionally tapping the page to emphasize a point to the person next to her. Their eyes met for an instant, and he offered a tentative smile. When the workshop ended, he lingered by the door, mustering enough courage to say hello. They ended up talking about the guest speaker's presentation, the weather, and how both of them had only recently discovered the center. A few days later, they crossed paths again at the local library's book club meeting. This time, Linda invited Michael to sit with her. Their conversation was unhurried and surprisingly comfortable. She mentioned losing her husband nearly 5 years ago, describing how loneliness had pushed her to find new social circles. Her children lived out of state, a situation Michael understood all too well. Their shared experiences stirred an almost immediate empathy between them. At first, he wrestled with guilt. How could he befriend someone this easily, given Sharon's memory still burned brightly? Yet Linda never asked him to set aside his past. Instead, she encouraged him to talk about the life he once had, to revisit memories without shame or hesitation. He, in turn, listened to her stories of a marriage cut short by illness, noticing the gloss of unshed tears in her eyes. Their conversations became a gentle exchange of remembrance and hope. It wasn't about replacing what they'd lost, but about finding solace in a new connection. As weeks turned into months, they began meeting outside of the center, sharing walks by the lake or exploring a small diner nearby. Sometimes the conversation was light, filled with jokes about keeping up with technology. Other times it grew solemn as they faced the complex emotions that linger after a spouse's passing. In Linda, Michael found someone who respected his independence yet understood his vulnerability. They discovered a companionship that felt quietly reassuring, grounded in mutual acceptance rather than romantic idealism. By the start of spring, Michael and Linda settled into a comfortable routine. Family members noticed the change, too. His children remarked that he sounded happier on the phone, less weighed down by worry. While he hesitated to label their bond, he recognized the gentle joy of being understood on a deeper level. For the first time since losing Sharon, he had genuine hope that one chapter of life could close and another begin, different in tone, but just as meaningful. Still, with every new connection came the recognition that life could shift at any moment. That understanding would lead them both to contemplate the next major step many seniors face: staying put or transitioning into a senior living community. Love and companionship in later life don't erase past memories. They enrich the present, proving it's never too late to find comfort in someone who truly understands. Navigating major transitions, senior living communities. As spring blossomed, Michael and Linda's conversations naturally turned toward future plans. Linda's daughter wanted her to move closer, pointing out that Linda would be better supported if her health declined. Meanwhile, Michael's son hinted that his father's large home felt increasingly empty. Although Michael cherished the memories rooted in each room, he noticed how daily chores and staircases had become more daunting. He also recognized that a single medical emergency could leave him vulnerable. Yet, the thought of leaving his home stirred conflicting emotions. Part of him dreaded the notion that he was giving up his independence. He worried about life in a community setting, fearing it could feel institutional or impersonal. Linda shared similar concerns, but offered anecdotes from friends who had moved to active senior complexes. These communities often included on-site activities, healthcare support, and a built-in social network. One weekend, they visited a local retirement complex. A guided tour took them through bright common rooms where residents chatted over coffee, a modest but welcoming dining hall, and a staff that greeted them warmly. Michael found himself surprised by the sense of camaraderie, recognizing that he could enjoy a neighborhood-like atmosphere without the burdens of yard work or major house repairs. Staff explained the various tiers of care, ranging from independent apartments to assisted living. For many seniors, that meant they wouldn't have to relocate again if their needs evolved. Still, no decision was straightforward. When Linda's daughter proposed a community near her own home, it offered family close by but required Linda to move out of state, away from Michael. Meanwhile, Michael's children encouraged him to choose the option that would provide the best overall support. He sensed their relief that he might be in a safer environment, but also felt torn about leaving his home. In the end, neither Michael nor Linda had the perfect solution. Every choice involved a trade-off, departing from familiar surroundings, missing grandkids who lived far away, or risking more loneliness if they stayed put. Yet these tours and late-night phone calls clarified one thing: their emotional well-being mattered as much as their safety. They both wanted a setting that allowed them to keep growing rather than just settling in. A few weeks later, each stood at a crossroads about where to live. They understood that even the most thoughtfully chosen community wouldn't shelter them completely from life's unpredictable nature. As they weighed options over cups of tea, they saw that a new chapter was about to unfold, one that emphasized mindful choices and a willingness to adapt. Moving to a senior living community isn't about surrendering freedom. It's about finding a balance between independence, safety, and the kind of social support that fosters emotional well-being. 6. Confronting loss and grief head-on. Just as Michael and Linda were weighing their options for the future, a sudden scare rattled their newfound sense of calm. One afternoon, while Michael was at the community center, he overheard a frantic call. A fellow participant had collapsed during an art class. Paramedics arrived swiftly, and everyone hovered in the hallway, hoping for good news. Though Michael barely knew the woman, someone who loved chatting about watercolors, her predicament sparked a surge of dread. It was a stark reminder of how unpredictable health crises can be, especially in later life. That evening, both he and Linda couldn't escape the what-ifs swirling in their minds. Michael recalled the helplessness of calling 911 when Sharon fell ill, the endless minutes waiting for the ambulance. Linda remembered finding her husband in a hospital room, teetering between life and death. Each carried that lingering trauma, and this incident reopened old wounds they had tried to heal. A few days later, they heard that the woman who collapsed was recovering, though facing a lengthy rehabilitation. Relief rippled through the community, but the incident confirmed a sobering truth. Aging often entails witnessing or experiencing emergencies that bring buried fears to the surface. Even casual greetings, "How are you feeling today?" seem to carry more weight now. Refusing to let dread overshadow hope, Michael organized a small get-together at his home. He invited Linda, neighbors, and friends from the center. Over potluck dishes, they spoke openly about the realities of aging, the medical appointments, hospital stays, and the need for quick emergency response. Surprisingly, the atmosphere remained far from gloomy. By voicing such concerns, they found relief in common ground. Laughter surfaced when someone cracked a joke about medication bingo, proving that humor and vulnerability can coexist. Yet, in the softer moments of the gathering, Michael saw how crucial it was for each person to have more than financial plans. They needed emotional readiness too. They discussed advance directives, emergency contacts, and end-of-life wishes, awkward topics, but necessary ones. Linda suggested that far from being morbid, these conversations could be acts of love, ensuring fewer burdens for those left behind. Michael, in turn, felt a renewed resolve forming within him. Loss and fear remain an unavoidable aspect of later life. Nobody can predict when another sudden emergency will upend everything or when a cherished friend might pass away. But by confronting these possibilities head-on, instead of hiding from them, Michael and Linda discovered a measure of peace. Sharing their fears not only alleviated the pressure, but also forged a stronger sense of community support. It wasn't about denying sadness, but about acknowledging that nobody should grapple with it alone. Accepting the reality of loss and openly planning for emergencies can transform fear into collective strength. Candid conversations protect both you and your loved ones from undue hardship. 7. Finding hope in reflection and spiritual strength. In the days after the incident, a stillness settled into Michael's routine. He often rose before dawn, immersing himself in the hush of early morning. Sometimes he'd gaze through old photo albums of Sharon and the kids, letting soft waves of memory wash over him. Yet, instead of being consumed by grief, he felt a gentle acceptance. Life, for all its fragility, still carried hope and wonder. He began exploring spiritual or reflective practices, despite never being particularly religious. At Linda's suggestion, he visited a nearby chapel that opened its doors for an hour of silent meditation each week. Sitting quietly among strangers of varying beliefs, he found solace. With no specific prayers required, he could simply let his thoughts settle. These moments of mindfulness reduced the guilt he once felt about moving forward, while Sharon's memory remained vivid. At home, he began writing short reflections in a journal each evening. His entries ranged from gratitude lists, small joys like a favorite song or a blooming flower, to lingering worries about his health. Over time, journaling became a self-dialogue, a way to see that life holds both hardships and glimmers of beauty. Flipping back through the pages, he realized that even on days overshadowed by worry, there were moments of peace worth treasuring. Linda, too, shared how she found perspective in her long walks, observing how nature cycles through seasons of death and rebirth. Together, they discovered that true faith might simply be a steady trust in life's ability to renew itself and in their own capacity to adapt. They had no illusions about conquering all fears, but they embraced each sunrise as an opportunity to see things anew. Tea-sipping chats became chances to exchange these insights. Linda might mention a quote or poem that moved her, while Michael shared a particularly striking sunrise he had witnessed. Neither claimed to have every answer, but both sensed that nurturing a gentle spirit of reflection, whether it involved meditation, journaling, or simply appreciating quiet mornings, built an inner resilience stronger than any specific plan. With this renewed mindset, Michael noticed his fear of what if starting to fade. Grief and worry still surfaced, yet they no longer held him captive. He could now face life's unpredictability with a cautious optimism, armed with a deeper understanding of himself. By the time he closed his journal each night, he felt better prepared for whatever might come next. Spiritual or reflective strength can arise from simple acts of gratitude, meditation, or mindful living. Accepting impermanence doesn't erase sadness, but helps transform it into resilience. As we reach the end of Michael's story, we see that growing older alone can still be a journey rich in discovery. Financial security, personal well-being, and honest conversations about mortality each play a part in finding peace. At the heart of it all, relationships, whether rekindled or newly forged, remind us that love and understanding transcend age. Embracing the future means accepting life's fragility with open eyes and a hopeful spirit. We can choose to cherish each day, nurture what fulfills us, and keep searching for the connections that matter most. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, share, and subscribe.